You have got to be kidding me right now. WWE just pulled the most disrespectful, most insulting, most absolutely infuriating move they could possibly pull on the fans who have been invested in the CM Punk Mystery Attacker storyline for weeks. They're keeping the identity hidden. Still, after all this time, after all the speculation, after all the theories and debates and passionate discussions across social media, after fans have stayed up late analyzing every single frame of footage looking for clues, after people have literally created spreadsheets and timelines trying to crack this mystery, WWE looked at all of that engagement, all of that investment, all of that genuine fan interest, and decided that the best course of action is to just keep stringing everyone along with no payoff in sight. And you know what the worst part is? This isn't even surprising anymore. This is just standard operating procedure for a company that has mastered the art of taking something fans actually care about and stretching it out until nobody cares anymore. But this time, they've gone too far. This time, the fans are genuinely angry, and they have every right to be. Because what WWE is doing with this CM Punk Mystery Attacker storyline isn't clever storytelling. It isn't building suspense. It's straight up disrespecting the intelligence and patience of the audience that keeps this company in business. What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel where we don't hold back on telling you exactly what's happening in the wrestling world, even when it makes the biggest company in the industry look bad. Before we dive into this absolute mess of a situation, I need you to smash that like button right now like you want to smash through WWE's creative team meeting and demand some actual answers. Hit it hard because this video is going to expose everything that's wrong with how WWE treats their audience, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the very end because the information I have about what's really going on backstage with this storyline is going to make you even angrier than you already are. And make sure you share this video with every single wrestling fan you know because WWE needs to understand that we're not going to just sit quietly and accept being treated like we don't matter. So let's break down exactly what's been happening and why fans have reached their absolute breaking point with this storyline. CM Punk returned to WWE after a decade away, and it was legitimately one of the biggest moments in modern wrestling history. The pop he got was deafening. The excitement was real. Fans who had given up on ever seeing him in a WWE ring again were suddenly re-energized and invested in the product. WWE had lightning in a bottle. They had a returning megastar who fans genuinely wanted to see, who had unfinished business, who had stories to tell and matches to have with the current roster. It should have been easy money. It should have been appointment television every single week. And for a while, it was exactly that. Then the attack happened. CM Punk was brutally assaulted backstage, taken out before a major match, left lying in a heap while cameras captured the aftermath. Immediately, the speculation began. Who did it? Why did they do it? What's the motive? What's the endgame? These are all valid questions that any good mystery storyline needs to answer eventually. The key word there is eventually. WWE has turned eventually into never and fans are absolutely sick of it. Week after week, they tease possible suspects. Week after week, they show cryptic backstage segments that are supposed to be clues. Week after week, they have commentators wondering out loud about who could be responsible. And week after week, we get absolutely nowhere closer to an actual answer. This isn't how mystery storylines are supposed to work in professional wrestling. Look at some of the most successful whodunit angles in wrestling history. When done right, these stories build to a crescendo where the reveal pays off all the speculation and investment. The reveal happens at the perfect moment when interest is at its peak, not after everyone has already moved on to caring about something else. WWE seems to have forgotten this basic principle of storytelling. They think that as long as they keep dangling the carrot, fans will keep chasing it indefinitely. But that's not how human psychology works. People have limits to their patience. People need payoffs for their emotional investment. People need to feel like their time spent watching and analyzing and discussing actually matters and leads somewhere meaningful. The current situation with the CM Punk attacker mystery has become a perfect case study in how not to handle this type of storyline. It's been going on for so long that fans have literally gone through every possible suspect multiple times. They've theorized about main event stars, mid-card wrestlers, returning legends, debuting talent, and even people who aren't currently with the company. Every single week, new evidence seems to point in a different direction. Every single week, WWE throws out red herrings that lead nowhere. Every single week, the goalposts move further away from an actual resolution. And every single week, fans get more frustrated and more angry that their investment is being taken for granted. What makes this situation even more infuriating is that WWE knows exactly what they're doing. This isn't incompetence. This isn't creative confusion. This is a deliberate strategy to stretch out a storyline for as long as possible regardless of whether it actually makes sense from a narrative perspective. WWE's philosophy has become about drawing things out rather than telling tight, compelling stories with proper beginnings, middles, and ends. They've become so obsessed with long-term storytelling that they've forgotten that long-term doesn't mean indefinite. Long-term storytelling still requires payoffs. It still requires progression. it still requires giving the audience something to sink their teeth into along the way. Let's talk about the specific ways WWE has mishandled this storyline because it's important to understand just how badly they've screwed this up. First, they've presented too many suspects without eliminating any of them definitively. In a good mystery, you narrow down the possibilities as you go, ruling out suspects one by one until you're left with the actual culprit. WWE has done the opposite. They keep adding more potential suspects while never actually clearing anyone. The result is a muddled mess where literally anyone on the roster could be revealed as the attacker and fans would just shrug because it's impossible to follow the logic anymore. Second, they've let too much time pass without significant developments. There have been entire episodes of Raw and SmackDown where the storyline isn't even mentioned. How are fans supposed to stay invested in a mystery when the show itself seems to forget about it half the time? The lack of consistent focus sends a message that even WWE doesn't think the storyline is that important, so why should viewers care? When you have something as potentially hot as a CM Punk mystery angle and you're not featuring it prominently every single week, you're wasting a golden opportunity and disrespecting the fans who are trying to stay engaged with it. Third, and this is crucial, they've undermined the severity of the attack through their handling of the aftermath. CM Punk was supposedly brutally assaulted, an attack that should have massive repercussions and create an atmosphere of danger and uncertainty. But then he's back wrestling shortly after like nothing happened. There's no sense of real consequence. There's no feeling that catching the attacker actually matters in any meaningful way. If Punk himself doesn't seem that concerned about finding out who did it, why should we as viewers be invested in the mystery? The internal logic of the storyline has completely fallen apart. Now let's get into what's really making fans angry, and it goes beyond just this one storyline. This CM Punk attacker mystery has become symbolic of a larger problem with how WWE operates. They treat their audience like we have infinite patience, like we'll just keep watching no matter how poorly they handle things, like our emotional investment and time spent engaging with their product doesn't actually need to be respected or rewarded. That's an incredibly arrogant and short-sighted way to approach your relationship with your fan base. Wrestling fans are passionate, yes, but we're not stupid. We can tell when we're being strung along. We can recognize when a company is more interested in dragging things out for television time than actually telling a good story. The online wrestling community has been absolutely erupting with frustration about this situation. Twitter is filled with fans expressing their anger and disappointment. Reddit threads are full of people who've completely checked out of caring about the mystery because they've lost faith that it will ever be resolved in a satisfying way. YouTube comments sections are packed with viewers saying they're tired of being treated like their investment doesn't matter. This isn't just a small contingent of complainers. This is a widespread sentiment across multiple platforms from different segments of the fanbase. When you've lost both the hardcore fans who analyze everything and the casual viewers who just want to be entertained, you've seriously miscalculated. What's particularly galling is that WWE has pulled this exact same thing before with other storylines. Remember the anonymous Raw general manager angle that went on forever and then had a completely unsatisfying payoff years later that nobody cared about anymore? Remember various authority figure mysteries that dragged on interminably? Remember countless other whodunit angles that were either never properly resolved or were resolved so late that all the heat had dissipated? WWE has a pattern of doing this, and yet they never seem to learn from past mistakes. They keep making the same errors over and over, assuming that fans will just accept it because what other options do we have? Actually, let's address that question directly because it's relevant to why fans are particularly angry right now. We do have other options. AEW exists as a legitimate alternative that generally does a better job of paying off storylines in reasonable timeframes. Independent wrestling is more accessible than ever. New Japan, Impact, and countless other promotions are available for fans who want their intelligence respected. WWE doesn't have a monopoly on wrestling anymore, and yet they're still operating like it's 1995 and we have no choice but to accept whatever they give us. That disconnect between how WWE sees their position in the market and the actual reality of having competition is contributing to fan frustration. Let's also talk about CM Punk specifically and why dragging out this storyline is particularly problematic for him. Punk is not a young guy anymore. He doesn't have decades of in-ring career left ahead of him. Every week that WWE wastes on this directionless mystery angle is a week that could have been spent on meaningful feuds, important matches, and moments that fans will remember. Instead, we're getting endless speculation about an attacker whose identity may or may not ever actually matter. That's not how you utilize one of the biggest stars in your company. That's not how you maximize the limited time you have with a talent of Punk's caliber. Punk himself has got to be frustrated with how this is being handled, even if he can't say so publicly. This is a guy who left wrestling partially because of creative frustration, who spoke extensively about how WWE's creative process often made no sense and disrespected the performers. He came back presumably with assurances that things would be different, that he'd be used properly, that his return would be treated with the importance it deserved. And yet here we are with him stuck in a storyline that's going nowhere, that's making nobody look good, and that's actively turning fans off rather than drawing them in. If I were in his position, I'd be having some serious conversations with management about getting this resolved and moving on to something that actually matters. The business implications of this mishandling are significant too. WWE is in an era where they need every advantage they can get in terms of maintaining and growing their audience. Television ratings are a constant concern. Live event attendance has its ups and downs. Keeping fans engaged and invested in storylines is crucial to the health of the business. When you take something that should be a guaranteed hook, something that should keep people tuning in week after week to find out what happens next, and you mishandle it so badly that it becomes a source of frustration rather than excitement, you're actively harming your own business interests. You're giving fans reasons to tune out rather than tune in. Let's examine some of the theories fans have developed about who the attacker might be, because this illustrates just how convoluted this whole thing has become. Some people think it's Drew McIntyre based on various interactions and backstage segments. Others are convinced it's a returning star like Samoa Joe or someone from Punk's past. There are theories about it being a current mid-card wrestler trying to make a name for themselves. Some fans think it might be multiple people working together. There are even conspiracy theories about it being orchestrated by management or authority figures. The fact that all of these theories are equally plausible because WWE hasn't given us any definitive information is a problem. A good mystery should narrow possibilities, not expand them infinitely. What's really frustrating is that there are several wrestlers on the roster who would benefit tremendously from being revealed as the attacker if it was done right. Imagine if they pulled the trigger on this storyline and revealed it was an up-and-coming heel who could use the heat and the instant credibility of having taken out CM Punk. That person could be launched into the main event scene immediately. WWE could create a new star while giving Punk a meaningful feud. It's a win-win situation that they're refusing to capitalize on because they're too committed to dragging things out indefinitely. That's bad for business, bad for the roster, and bad for fans who want to see new stars elevated. The creative team backstage has to be aware of the negative reaction this is generating. WWE monitors social media. They see the criticism. They hear the chants at live events. They know that fans are frustrated. So why do they continue down this path? The most logical explanation is that they've painted themselves into a corner. They've stretched the mystery out for so long that there's no longer a satisfying way to resolve it. Any reveal at this point will feel anticlimactic because the moment has passed. They waited too long, and now they're stuck trying to figure out how to end something that should have been resolved months ago. That's not the fans' fault. That's WWE's creative team failing to properly structure and execute a storyline from the beginning. There's also the possibility that WWE genuinely believes this approach is working, that they think fans complaining online actually means fans are invested and engaged. That's a dangerous misread of the situation. There's a difference between good heat that makes people want to see resolution and bad heat that makes people want to stop watching. The CM Punk attacker mystery has crossed over into bad heat territory for a significant portion of the audience. People aren't talking about it because they're excited to see what happens next. They're talking about it because they're frustrated and angry that nothing is happening at all. That's not the kind of engagement WWE should want. Let's consider what a proper resolution would look like at this point. Ideally, WWE would pick a suspect who makes sense narratively, who has had sufficient build-up and motivation established throughout the angle, and who would benefit from the reveal in terms of their career trajectory. They would do the reveal on a major show like a pay-per-view where it would feel important and consequential. They would have Punk and the attacker immediately begin a heated feud that capitalizes on all the built-up anticipation. The matches would be personal and intense, reflecting the severity of the initial attack. And most importantly, the whole thing would wrap up in a reasonable timeframe so everyone involved can move on to their next programs. That's storytelling 101, but apparently it's too much to ask from WWE's creative team. Instead, what we're likely to get is either an underwhelming reveal that doesn't live up to months of speculation, or worse, the storyline will just quietly be dropped and never properly resolved at all. Both outcomes would be completely unacceptable to fans who have invested time and emotional energy into following this mystery. Both outcomes would represent a massive failure of creative leadership, and both outcomes would further erode trust between WWE and their audience, making fans less likely to invest in future storylines because they'll remember getting burned on this one. The talent in WWE's locker room has to be watching this situation and taking notes. If this is how WWE handles a storyline involving one of the biggest stars in the company, someone with CM Punk's name value and drawing power, what does that say about how they'll handle storylines for everyone else? Mid-card wrestlers are probably looking at this and thinking there's no hope for their own programs to be handled competently. Main eventers are probably concerned about getting stuck in similar creative quicksand where nothing ever gets resolved. The lack of confidence this creates throughout the roster has to have a negative impact on morale and performance. From a fan perspective, this situation is teaching us a very unfortunate lesson about how much we should invest emotionally in WWE storylines. If even something as straightforward as a mystery attacker angle can be bungled this badly, why should we bother getting invested in anything? Why should we spend our time speculating and analyzing and discussing when there's a good chance nothing will ever be properly paid off? WWE is conditioning their audience to care less, which is the exact opposite of what they should be doing. They should be conditioning us to care more by consistently delivering satisfying payoffs that reward our investment. The fact that they're doing the opposite is creative malpractice. Social media engagement around WWE programming has become increasingly negative in recent months, and the CM Punk attacker storyline is a perfect example of why. Fans aren't excited to share theories anymore. They're angry and expressing frustration. The conversation is shifted from "I can't wait to find out who did it" to "I can't believe they're still dragging this out." That's a catastrophic failure of storytelling. When your mystery angle generates more complaints than excitement, you fundamentally misunderstood how to book this type of content. Let's also address the elephant in the room, which is that CM Punk's return to WWE was supposed to be this triumphant, feel-good story about a prodigal son coming home. Instead, it's been marred by creative missteps like this attacker angle that have prevented him from just being CM Punk and doing what he does best. Fans wanted to see Punk cut promos, have great matches with current stars, and remind everyone why he's one of the best performers of his generation. Instead, significant television time has been eaten up by this mystery that isn't advancing, isn't interesting anymore, and isn't making anyone look good. That's a waste of Punk's talents and a waste of the goodwill his return generated. The comparison to how other companies handle storylines is inevitable and doesn't favor WWE. When AEW does a mystery angle, it generally gets resolved in a timeframe that makes sense. When New Japan builds to a major reveal, they pay it off when interest is at its peak. WWE is the only major wrestling company that consistently seems to think that dragging things out indefinitely is good storytelling. It's not. It's lazy booking that relies on artificial extension rather than organic story progression. Fans can tell the difference, and we're not impressed. There are reports from backstage sources that even some of WWE's own creative team members are frustrated with how this storyline is being handled. When your own writers and producers are questioning the direction of a major angle, that's a sign that something has gone seriously wrong. The fact that these concerns apparently aren't being addressed or taken seriously by whoever has final creative authority is deeply concerning. It suggests a disconnect between what's actually working for the audience and what management thinks is working. The most damning indictment of this entire situation is that WWE has taken one of their hottest angles, something that should have been Cantimas television, and turned it into something fans actively complain about and cite as an example of everything wrong with the company's creative process. That takes a special level of mismanagement. That requires consistently making the wrong decisions at every turn. That demonstrates a fundamental lack of understanding about what makes professional wrestling engaging and entertaining. And that's why fans are so angry, because we can all see how good this could have been if it was handled competently, and instead we're watching it be squandered in real time. So what can fans actually do about this situation? Well, for starters, keep making noise. Keep expressing frustration on social media. Keep letting WWE know through every available channel that this isn't acceptable. Use the feedback tools they provide. Make your voices heard at live events. Vote with your wallets by being selective about what merchandise you buy and what shows you attend. WWE responds to metrics and money, so if you want them to change their approach, you need to make it clear that there are consequences for disrespecting the audience. Silence and passive acceptance is what they're counting on, so don't give them that satisfaction. Additionally, support alternatives. Watch other wrestling companies that respect your intelligence and your time. Engage with content that actually delivers satisfying storytelling. Show WWE that you have options and you're willing to exercise them if they continue down this path. Competition is what keeps companies honest and forces them to up their game. The more fans diversify their wrestling consumption, the more pressure WWE will feel to actually deliver quality content rather than relying on brand loyalty and nostalgia to carry them through creative mediocrity. In conclusion, the CM Punk mystery attacker situation represents everything wrong with modern WWE creative. It's a case study in how to take something with tremendous potential and completely waste it through poor planning, lack of follow-through, and a fundamental disrespect for the audience's time and investment. Fans have every right to be angry because we've been strung along for months with no payoff and no indication that one is coming anytime soon. This isn't clever storytelling. This isn't building suspense. This is creative bankruptcy masquerading as long-term booking. And WWE needs to understand that fans are not going to just keep accepting this kind of treatment indefinitely. We deserve better. CM Punk deserves better. The business deserves better. It's time for WWE to either resolve this storyline properly or admit they have no idea what they're doing and let everyone involved move on to something that actually matters. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Are you still invested in finding out who attacked CM Punk, or have you completely checked out of caring? What would it take for WWE to salvage this storyline at this point? Do you think there's any reveal that would actually satisfy fans after all this time? Let's have a real discussion about this because WWE needs to understand the level of frustration they've created. Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because this story is going to continue developing and you'll want to stay updated on all the latest developments. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know because everyone needs to understand why the fans are so angry about this situation. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one where we continue holding WWE accountable for their creative decisions.